Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strike Zone with St. Paul Saints Manager George Tsamis. Strike Zone is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the St. Paul Saints skipper questions about the Saints, baseball or sports in general, or just seek the manager's wisdom about life events that are happening out there. This week we have an exciting program for you as George shares information about a recent re-signing that should have a big impact on the Saints season this year. He talks a little NFL with us, and George tells us how many pitches he believes it would take Rob to be able to hit one of his pitches. As a note, I wanted to let you know that we had a little problem during our conversation over the phone where we were disconnected a couple of times, so if the show is choppy in a couple of spots, please bear with us as we had a little technical difficulties this week. So let's get right to Strike Zone. So let's welcome back Manager George Tsamis. So George, let's first of all begin with some team updates. We saw today that it was announced that Vinny DeFazio re-signed for the season.
Yes, we're excited to have him back because he was excellent for us last year, and you can't really have much of a better year than he had. He was, he was clutch from the day he took over the everyday job. And here's the thing, he came into our camp last year, and the starting job was up in the air between him and Joey Pashork, and in the exhibition season, you have 6-7 games, and they both were okay. And actually, Joey may even have swung the bat a little bit better in the exhibition games. And then opening day started, and we rotated him a little bit, and Vinny took over the job, and he just had an unbelievable season, and very happy for him. And I'm glad we have him back. He's a great guy in the clubhouse, and the pitchers like throwing to him too. He's a good receiver, calls a good game, blocks balls good. So he's just a good all-around player, and again, we're happy to have him back with us. And he's a guy that cares about winning a lot, and you need more guys, with the attitude he has, and he's there to win. I know he loved the year he had, but not winning the championship and getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, I know it hurt him, and that's the way the players should be. When you don't get it done like that, it's good to have the guys that hurt when when you don't finish the job.
I know that at some points last season you gave him a little time at first base. I'm assuming to get his bat in the lineup, but also have Joey Pashork getting some time in as well. Is this something that to kind of save on his knees and not have him behind the plate as much, as that you see that's a possibility of him playing more first base for you next year?
Yeah, well, obviously when he's swinging the bat so well too, and it's obviously you want to give him a day off, but again, you want to keep his bat in the lineup, and it's tough when it's a little risky when you have two catchers on the roster, because the roster is so small, to have them DH, have one guy catching and have the other catcher in the DH spot, because if something happens with the starting catcher, then you lose the DH, and so you try to put him in the field as well too. So, when he's swinging the bat and as well as he did, you want to keep his bat in the lineup, but you try to avoid DH in him, with only two catchers on the roster.
The schedule came out last Thursday officially. So anything about the schedule for next season that you saw really kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, it's always exciting when the schedule comes, and I, couldn't wait to see it. And I do like the schedule. I know we have that tough 14-game road trip, but that's the way it goes, and it's going to be a tough trip. And but Wichita has those 17-day road trips all the time, and they find a way to get through it. And we've had those 10, 11-day road trips. And I think we had a good one last year. I believe we were 9-1 last year on that road trip, and so it's a long road trip, but. And once we get through that, I really like the schedule. I really like it, and I like starting at home, and so it's going to be hopefully another exciting season, and hopefully we can play well again. And it's real nice playing, in the new stadium there, and in front of those fans with all the positive energy. And
so the big difference for the season, George, that I noticed is the fact that we're going from 13 teams in the league to 12. So could you tell us a little bit about how that's working out for this season?
Yes, obviously, we needed to get down to 12 teams because there's no interleague play anymore, and So Amarillo and Grand Prairie, they're just going to just merge into one team, and that's okay too. I know we lose a team, but it's still a real good league, real exciting, and so 25 games will be played in Amarillo, and 25 games will be played in Grand Prairie. So that's the way that it was set up, and something different, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's good, and so I'm not sure where we're going for. I know we go down to Texas to play one of those teams. I'm not sure if that has been established, who we play.
So you don't know whether, when you head on that Texas trip, whether you go to Amarillo or Grand Prairie yet?
Yeah, it hasn't been announced yet. I know we start in Joplin and then go to Laredo and then one of those two yet, but I'm not really sure yet which one it'll be yet.
One of the most exciting parts of this schedule, I noticed this season, the All-Star Game at CHS Field.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's what a great atmosphere that's going to be, and we hope we can have several of our guys playing in that game. So we hope we can have a lot of guys, have a good first half, and it'd be nice to have several of our guys, playing in that, and some of the guys, in the home run derby as well, 'cause that's always exciting as well too. So, but it's going to be, you've seen the atmosphere there, and to have the All-Star Game there too, that's going to be a neat thing.
How do they determine, how the teams are determined? Is it like two of the Central teams and the four North, or how does that wind up working out?
I believe it's the Central and our division, the North Division. I believe it's will consist of one team, and then the other team will be the South, and I think they're going to take some players from the Can-Am League,
okay,
All-Stars too. So it's going to be, I'm told that's the way it's going to go down, and so again, it'd be nice if we can have several guys on that team. So it'd be great to play an All-Star game, in front of your home crowd.
Since this is in St. Paul, does that make you one of the managers of the team, or is that divided by some kind of record?
Steve Montgomery will be the manager of one of the teams. Obviously, they win the championship, and Pete Incaviglia will be the manager of the other team.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. I thought we should mention here too, Patrick Johnson, who had was named the league's best pitcher last season, signed with the Pirates. So two big kind of losses for Sioux City right off the bat.
Yeah, that's he deserves it. He was one of the top starters in the league. I know he won Pitcher of the Year, and he was excellent. There's no doubt he was, and but Crenshaw was excellent, and Kramer was excellent, and but yeah, I think it's good for our league that he's getting the opportunity as well too, and we're still hoping that Crenshaw and Kramer can get a chance with somebody too, and it's Kramer's down at the Dominican playing, and now Crenshaw told me the other day he's going to Venezuela to play in winter ball there too. So they're going to be seen, and they're going to see the numbers that they put up this year, and if they can impress a couple of scouts down there, and maybe they'll get the chance too to go to spring training with somebody, because they both do deserve the opportunity. Patrick Johnson, he had a great year, and he's a 90, 93 mile per hour fastball guy, and he was just pretty good, and he was down in winter ball as well too, and he impressed some people, and he got the opportunity. So hopefully that happens for our guys. That's
excellent. Before we head into fan questions, do we have a George Tsamis Minnesota Vikings update for us?
Yeah, it wasn't our day today. It wasn't our day. It was just one of those days. It started out good though, and but you know what? It's one loss. They're 7-3, still tied for first, and maybe it'll we want it to come down to the end anyways. To that last game in Green Bay. It'll come down to that. And again, it was just back in 7-3, still tied for first place, and they still can get it done.
Boy, and Teddy Bridgewater sure looked accurate all game long too.
Yeah, he made some nice throws, and he got knocked around a little bit too, and he was tough, and he stayed in there, and but again, it's one loss, and on to next week.
Heading into our fan questions this week, we first of all begin with Kevin from St. Paul, who asks, how do you feel about the team no longer playing Can-Am League teams?
I mean, I won't miss the travel going out there. I mean, that's kind of tough to do that. But if we played them, it'd be great. I'm fine with it. And if now that we don't, that's okay too. And it's nice to play a few extra teams. So it was nice to see those teams, especially to play New Jersey, where I managed, for a couple of years. So, but who knows if this is going to be a permanent thing or if it's year to year. But it's again. Won't miss the travel out there. It was pretty tough to do.
Diane from St. Paul asks, you have talked about 100 games being too short, kind of as a short season kind of thing. What do you think is a better number of games you'd like for the league?
It's we always talk the off season it's so long. I wish we could get started way earlier. Well, I do think the Major League season is too long, and maybe the 100 games for us is short. 110, 120 would be great, but I know it's tough to do. With the weather, we can't start much earlier up there in St. Paul. With the weather, with it being so cold. So maybe 110, 120 would be great, but I don't know if we're ever going to see that.
I think some of the issues too, because this would be St. Paul with Hamline University and Lincoln with the University of Nebraska, is that college teams are using those stadiums almost up until the season begins. Yep. So that might also cause an issue.
Yep.
I assume. Our next
it's tough to fit them all in. So
our next question asks, a person has heard that there's a winter league in Florida for independent league players. Do you scout these players at all?
I have not been down there to see them, but I know Kevin Hooper went down there, and you get some reports on players, and we'll see. There's a chance, we may sign, one or two guys out of there, but I have not been down there to see them. Sometimes in this business too, you just go on reports, and and you try to get the best guys you can, and so we'll see what happens with that. And there's a chance that we may sign a guy or two.
Stan from Bloomington would like to know from you, with the trade of Jeff Shields to Wichita, are you looking to replace him as a starter, or do you see your team trying to go with 4 starters?
Oh, we'll definitely replace him. We'll definitely have 5 starters, especially with, I don't know if you noticed in the schedule, we have no off days the first 28 days, so we're definitely need 5 starters, and and you may even have to carry that extra, maybe even a 12th pitcher, because it's tough. It's tough to get through those days with no off days, and those starters, you need to have quality starters, because it's a blow to the bullpen if you get a starter knocked out, in the second, third inning. So we'll definitely have 5 starters, and we hope they're good ones, and hopefully they can do as well as our guys did this past season.
Speaking of that extra spot, Manny from Richfield would like to know from you. I know that the league is adding an additional player to the roster to the season. Do you see this as an additional position player for your team?
Eventually, yes. I would think it's you want to have that third guy on the bench. It's nice to have a backup catcher, a backup infielder, and a backup outfielder, but with the roster being so small over the years, it's just there's times you can only have 2 guys on the bench, and maybe even 1 at times. You need to have at least 11 pitchers. It's tough to go with less, and there's times last year that we were playing with the disabled list, putting guys on the disabled list just to have the extra body. So, I would think over the long haul, we'd have 11 pitchers and 3 position players on the bench.
One of the things I thought you did such a really great job with the team with last year was you chose guys that could play like 3 and 4 positions. Joey Pachora could play left and right and third and catcher, and Ryan Lashley could play the outfield and third and second, and Angelo Sanco played 3 different spots for you. I mean, you had guys that really could fill in a lot of different spots.
Yeah, and it's nice to get those guys, and I think in our league you need to find guys like that, that can play infield, play outfield. But there's sometimes though, it's not like it was planned. Sometimes you got to put an infielder out in the outfield because you're short. You're short guys, and we try to avoid putting pitchers out in the field. I know a couple times last year we had to, and so it's just it's good to have guys that can play multiple positions. And even though one of my favorite moments of the year last year was when we had to put Cole into the game, Robert Cole into the game to play third base, because we you know, Nicorette got hurt and Vinny was gone for his sister's wedding and Short hurt his thumb, so we didn't have enough players. But it was nice to go at third base where he made a nice play with bases loaded in a tie game and then got that big hit to win the game for us in the seventh inning. So, but I don't see that happening very often where the pitcher comes in and gets a hit to win the game for you.
Well, he was pretty happy because he led the team in hitting. He was telling me so.
Yes, he led the team in hitting, and Nicorette led our team in ERA, I believe. So it's just funny how it works out, you know.
Absolutely. Dave from Chicago would like to know from you. Derek Jeter denies that he used to give his dates a gift basket for their initial date. Didn't he drop his level of coolness like 4 levels by letting us know that?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, he's what a player he was. He's something. He is cool. I know that, and he was a guy that. You know, he's a guy that just went out there every day and went about his business, did the right way, and just came up with clutch hit after clutch hit and great play after great play. And it's too bad he couldn't stay young, and keep playing because he was something to watch.
Omar from St. Paul asks, do you think interleague play has been good for baseball? It seems that the New York teams and the California teams playing each other each season has taken away some of the luster of these games.
I know. I mean, I personally like it. I know a lot of people don't, but the more teams you can play, and it's nice when the Yankees play the Mets or Dodgers and the Angels. It's nice to me that they do play interleague play because I think it's better, but other people would disagree with it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I like the interleague play because I think it is exciting that, let's say an Atlanta Braves gets to see a Seattle Mariners, which it probably would never happen if you were waiting for a World Series matchup of that. So, it allows a person to get to see, I mean, think about it, Seattle guys would have never got to see Greg Maddox pitch or Tom Glavine or something if it wasn't interleague play.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I enjoy it. Like I said, I know some people don't. And there's one thing I feel strongly about. I don't think the pitcher should hit. But again, obviously that's the way it works in the National League. They do hit, and even though Bumgarner's a good hitter, I don't know. I just think it's better there's a DH. To me, it's more exciting. But
let me state up front for fans out there, I'm not saying Seattle and Atlanta will never make the World Series, so I don't want to get inundated with thousands of emails over the next week or so. Absolutely.
You still never know, though. You never know what's going to happen. Year to year, you never know.
Very true. Okay. Our next question comes from Bruce from St. Paul, who has a couple of questions for you. His first is that Andy Van Slyke said a close source to him told him that most of the Dodger players were sick of Yasiel Puig. His son plays for the team, and even if it wasn't his son who was the source, didn't that put his son in a real awkward position with everyone thinking he's the source?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in that clubhouse, but yeah, I think it did put his son in a tough spot, and I wonder how the Thanksgiving dinner is going to go in a couple of days here. There. It's just I don't know. It may be tough on him, but hopefully it just blows over.
Bruce would also like to know, he looks at a guy like Yasiel Puig and wonders if there's a point that despite the amount of talent that a player has, he's simply not worth it.
Yeah, it's again, you hear all the stories, but again, without being in the clubhouse and seeing, what's going on in the clubhouse, and it doesn't every year on any team you have, there's always going to be somebody that somebody doesn't like. It always works out that way. I guess the guys with more talent, they get more chances. But if it's a problem in the clubhouse and guys can't stand the guy being around, then maybe it's best to make a deal and move the guy. And there's times that, in any sport, you see a trade and it doesn't look very even. It looks like somebody got, the bad part of the deal. Well, sometimes it's just they want the guy out of the clubhouse and they get what they can for him, and then you move on. So, he's got the great arm, and there's times I've seen the guy hit a base hit up the middle and get a double out of it because he was hustling. The hustle's great at times when you see it and the arm, but the other stuff, who knows? Maybe just people are sick of it. But again, for me to comment on that, I just don't know because I'm not in the clubhouse and I don't see what's going on there every day. And obviously, when we play every night, we really don't see too many games either. I mean, I really don't get to see too many games on TV, so you just go by the highlights you see at night.
I'm kind of curious from you as a former major leaguer that, I mean, you hear, I mean, I'm looking at this kind of story and I'm thinking, okay, well, you hear that the Dodger players don't like this guy, but if there really was a guy that somebody didn't like in the clubhouse, would it be kind of an unknown source? I mean, wouldn't everybody know that kind of thing being at the major league level?
Yeah, I know that's a tough one because I know players don't like the controversy and they don't want to be the one to, to be that guy to pop off and run their mouth. So they just, maybe they just keep it quiet and just, the guy helps us win, they just look the other way. It's, I know with the Twins, there were a lot of great guys on that team. Some great teammates, Kirby Puckett and Dave Winfield and Ken Herbeck and Rick Aguilera. They were great guys on that team. So it's good to have those great guys, but I don't know, in most cases, maybe the bad guys are the guys that are not liked. Maybe you don't hear too much about it, or maybe you do finally hear something about it and they get rid of them.
Okay, interesting. Our next question comes from Greg from Mendota Heights, who'd like to know, he noticed that during the season it seemed that a lot more players were being promoted to the major league rosters from the AA level than from the AAA. Isn't AAA supposed to be the level where they are ready to move to the majors? Big fan of you and the Saints, George. He'd like to tell you as well.
Well, thank you. Who knows? Maybe some guys, they get to AA, they think they're ready to go, and again, with not really knowing the situation, I mean, obviously you see a lot of guys get called up from AAA, but maybe there's a handful of guys that once they get to AA and do well there, they feel we're going to bring them right up from there. So, like I said, I really don't know the numbers of how many more guys get called up from AAA, but there's those special players that just go straight from AA to the big leagues.
I think if you have the right kind of talent, it doesn't matter what level. Because didn't Jose Fernandez for the Marlins come from like single A to the majors or something?
Yeah, when they feel a guy's ready, they just take him from wherever he is.
Tom from Moundsview would like to know, David Ortiz retiring at the end of the season. Do you have a favorite David Ortiz moment you will remember him for?
I don't know about a favorite one. He's over and over and over. How many times have we seen him come up with a clutch hit? And I'm not a Red Sox fan, other than Kevin Millar. I love Kevin Millar. He's an outstanding person and a great guy. So with him on there, we like him. But it was tough to watch all those David Ortiz big home runs over and over in clutch spots because there were so many of them and so many big hits, and he just been a great hitter for a long time.
I think for me personally, the thing I'll remember him most was after the Boston Marathon bombing, how he kind of rallied the city at that next Red Sox game. I think that was kind of special.
Yes. So. Yeah, that was neat. That was a neat thing, and he's been a great Boston Red Sox player. I know that, and on the field, off the field, they love him there.
Theo from Burnsville would like to know from you, heading on to the NFL now, do you see the Dallas Cowboys coming back to win the NFC East?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's going to be a big game on Thanksgiving for them because, if they can pull that out, with that division, you just don't know what's going to happen. And you know what? If they came back, I wouldn't be surprised. That's why it's a long season. You just never know. You never know. You can get off to a lousy start and get hot, and you never know what's going to happen. But I'll tell you what, if they win this game this week on Thanksgiving Day against Carolina, who's undefeated, then I definitely think you're going to see them win that division.
That makes perfect sense. Packers fan would like to know, after those two big passes Aaron Rodgers made late yesterday, do you see him as right back in form now?
He's it seemed like he had more time to throw yesterday. He wasn't getting killed every play like we'd seen in previous weeks, and but that arm of his is something else, and he's an unbelievable player, and gets to give him a little time. He makes the plays, and again, it was their day yesterday, but still 6 games left, and I really do hope it comes down to that last game, that Packers-Vikings last game, and we'll see what happens.
That'd be beautiful. Cam from Anoka asks, would you ride Brock Osweiler now that after he looked so good yesterday, or would you go back to Peyton Manning?
Okay, well, I guess he was named the starter next week against the Patriots, so I would just see what happens. Let's see what happens. He played good yesterday, and but let's see him go up against a better opponent and playing the Patriots, the Sunday night game. We'll see if he can have a good game against them and pull that one out. Then maybe they should just keep it going with him. But I think that's going to be a week-to-week situation. And again, we don't really know how. Peyton Manning may be ready to play in 2 weeks. Maybe he'll be done for the year. Who knows? I just think you just need to ride it week to week and just see what happens.
Owen from Egan asks, he heard the commissioner talk yesterday about the NFL taking a look at the rule of what would be considered a catch. You have to like that, don't you?
You would think everybody in the world would like that, right? Is there one person that likes the rule the way it is now?
I don't even know what the rule is.
I don't know if there's... Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows what the rule is. So, I think they should make it a little, make it simple. The 2 steps and it's a catch and let's go on, So I think it's a good thing, and I hope they do fix that rule.
I couldn't agree with you more. Jim, who would like us to know that he's originally from Phoenix, says after the victory last night, why don't people give more respect to the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, they're getting it done, and that was an exciting game last night. Huh? They fell behind, and they're pretty good. They're tough to beat, and again, if they're in the Super Bowl, I don't think anybody would be surprised. So it's just, Carson Palmer. He looks like he's young again, and he's just been outstanding.
It's amazing that probably 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league, Brady and Palmer, are like 35 and 38 or something. So we'd like to see that.
Yeah, they're getting it done.
Alan from Mankato would like to know, what is better on Thanksgiving, eating a bunch of turkey or watching football?
I think it's real close, and it's both are really high on my list. So it's real close, and I'll take both of them.
Our last question for this week comes from Lori from New Hope, and we don't really need to identify who Lori is, but she would like to know, how many fastballs would you throw to me before you think I would actually hit one?
I think we should give it a shot and come out for batting practice and give it a shot and see. And it's, you practice it a few times, and it's not as hard as it looks. And so why don't we jump in there and batting practice when we get back and start the season?
Okay, well, when we're the only 2 in the stadium, maybe we'll try that, because I don't want to.
Okay, for the first time, and then once we we'll give you a couple practice ones in front of an empty stadium, and then we'll once you start swinging the bat well, then we'll fill the stadium so everybody can see you hit.
Great. All right, thanks for joining us this week, George.
All right, thank you very much, Kai.
We want to thank George for joining us on Strike Zone this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the St. Paul Saints skipper, please send them to us at AskGeorge@minorleaguesportsupport.com. That's AskGeorge@minorleaguesportsupport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give the skipper a little time to review them before we record the show Monday afternoon. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report. We want to thank you for joining us on Strike Zone this week, and we hope you will have a pleasant and enjoyable Thanksgiving. So we'll see you next week on Strike Zone.